All right, so where we're going to start is this. I've had 12 years of consulting clients in this space, selling to clients, client phone calls, now doing the podcast, having conversations around event marketing programs, and obviously still continuing to work inside of them with my company and the work that we do. And I've kind of been working through this idea of misalignment in organizations and then how that obviously affects a lack of approach and strategy that goes into event marketing programs at companies. So I'm going to give people, again, this is something that I'm working through. I've talked a little bit about it before. I would love feedback. I would love people talking about it in the chat. I will take any questions on it. I'm going to kind of paint the world as I see it for everybody, basically with a little bit of timeline and then kind of where I see problems and then hopefully where I see some solutions down the line. But any questions, any thoughts, pop it in the chat, put it in Q&A, and we'll rock and roll here. So where I want to start is essentially events prior COVID, right? And I think events prior COVID, words come to mind: autopilot, stale, more of the same. And I think the value of them was beginning to get questioned. You hit COVID, right? 16 to 20 month or so gap, I think it was, without really events. And I think what happened was people started to see, they realized the value of events once they were completely taken away and stripped away from everybody. Digital was incredibly saturated. Digital got accelerated and pushed to the front of the line. And I think people realized the acceleration was good. A lot of good happened, but it is not the end all be all. And that events themselves, there is a place for that capital to be deployed. So I think overall people just realized the value of events. So now you go to events after COVID. First, there was a rush, right? There was pent up money and pent up demand. A little while after, about a year and a half or so, you had some leveling off. And I think you had companies where they didn't have the pent up money, they didn't have the pent up demand, kind of got back to a little more of the same. And people in events were saying, these events have to produce. These events have to have a reason. These events have to have a point. I will say a positive, more talk about measurement, strategy, engagement, and overall approach has been taking place. And there is a lot of people challenging what I would call the old playbook of events, which we'll talk a little bit about. The world changed, right? And I think attendees and people going to events, whether sponsor, exhibitors, attendees, hosts, everybody, they want more from events. They want more from their time. They don't want something that they can get sitting at home. One of the things I've noticed is events prior COVID really had a transactional feel to them. Whereas now, like I said, people are seeking experience. These events need to be an experience for everybody. Right? That's kind of new versus old to me. The way of selling, the transactional method was just like show up, pop up your booth, be a sponsor the lunch, right? It's different at this point in time. So working from where we were prior COVID, during COVID, now you come after COVID, that's just kind of setting up to where we're at, which is, I think you have people asking questions about the event program and asking, where is it going? What is it producing? What is the purpose of it? And what is kind of the value of it? So where that takes me next is misalignment. And I think there is a lot of misalignment. I see this from working with our customers. I see this from talking to people that are here at the show, on our podcast, discussed in live panels, consulting calls that we take. And so I think this starts at the top, like any organization, right? CEO, CMO, their expectation, if you sit down CEOs and CMOs and you ask them about the events program at their company, their expectation is that it is a revenue producing type of channel. It is something that drives pipeline. It is something that pushes company initiatives, something that creates partnerships, right? It does produce something. I do feel, though, however, that essentially they are not putting the pressure downward on people. They are not putting pressure of that expectation. It comes up afterwards. It comes up down the line like, well, of course we wanted that to be produced. Of course we're looking for that to have results. They are setting vision, large strategy setting. And then the one thing I'm realizing is with our customers and with a lot of guests on this show and people and discussions I'm having, companies that have executive buy-in are winning in their events program. They are producing ROI. They are creating pipeline impact. They are doing things differently because they have executive buy-in, right? Big companies and small companies. I have talked to big companies and head of global events that when you talk to them about their program and they have their shit together, they are like, our CEO is bought into this. He or she knows what's going on. We have their support. We're making adjustments. We're being strategic in our thinking, and we have exec buy-in. We work with smaller companies where the presidents, CEOs, and people are involved at times in the process, and they know that this can be a revenue producing channel. That has been a big tell for me over the last year, is that when you have executive buy-in, the program is essentially always better. So talking about strategy and approach, and who's doing this work, if not CEO, CMO, well, your immediate thing is, well, Matt, like, of course, head of global events do this. Yes, they do. Head of global events do this work. They do own this. They do work through this channel. But here's the thing with head of global events. Majority of companies don't have them. Very big companies have head of global events. And when you are a company, most are deploying 20% of overall marketing budget at events. That is a lot of capital. That is a lot of money. So just call it companies in the $250,000 to $3 million budget range, right? Not revenue range. I'm talking companies that are deploying $250,000 to $3 million. That's their 20%, their budget rolling through. They don't have head of global events, right? So then, like, who's doing it then? Who's in charge of the strategy? Who's in charge of picking the shows? Who's in charge of making adjustments? Who's in charge of ensuring that results and company initiatives are being pushed down the line and that we're not just showing up just to show up, or we're not just designing a booth just to design a booth? Who is making that decision? So where it goes, Christine, you are 100% correct. She said, we are, yes, it is the event person, the event manager, the event marketer. And those are the people that we talk to consistently. And let me tell you what's happening there. Christine, just like yourself and a lot of people here, they are planners. They are event planners by trade, right? They are executing a big schedule of events. They are very busy. They have limited resources around them. They have too many stakeholders, too many stakeholders. They do not have a true seat at the table at the company, right? And they do lack experience in strategy.
Well, not only that, but we're missing on strategy, but like, how do you tie in like the goals of being there in that event into the business metrics, right? And how do you track the metrics? It's all very overwhelming for somebody coming in and running a program. It's just, you don't know where to start. You don't know how to have the conversations, and you're also drowning in the planning and doing it all, right? So there's the strategy, but then there's the day-to-day stuff that you have to literally try to not sink and swim. So
hopefully this is resonating. But my point here is that goes down to the event manager, event marketer. So you have somebody now, from the people that I talk to, they are raising their hand. They do want to drive this. But I can tell you that executing, planning, being the person handling all of it, doing strategic thinking, crafting up plans, making adjustments, dealing with stakeholders, trying to create alignment, I don't see it working, especially at larger companies. And to literally get even crazier on this, we have worked with and dealt with, and this is not uncommon, companies do not even have this person. They do not even have the planner style expert event person. They are deploying I have seen people deploy $500,000 at trade shows, 2, 3, 4, 5 a year, with somebody overseeing, managing, and running that has no idea what they're doing. And not to their fault, not that they're an idiot. They've just never done it before.
That's actually been me in my career in the past, is it coming in as a director of marketing for companies that do spend, $500K on events throughout the year. I had no prior event planning experience, and they just said, "Hey, we're gonna show up at these shows, make sure it's all done. This is where we get our booth from." There's no strategy. And I always used to ask, okay, so how are we tracking these leads? What are the conversations we're trying to have? What is the purpose? Like, is this our audience? And it was just very odd that I was even asking these questions to them. And it's coming from the sales directors, it's coming from, the VPs, it's coming from the executives. And it's because it's a nice to have, or, well, we've always been there, we've always done it. Right. And so then here I was trying to balance a big budget, being held accountable to drive leads, but not really knowing why I was supposed to be there. Now I see it
Yeah.
totally different. I think it always comes down to strategy first, understanding what we're trying to
Yes.
accomplish before we even get to design. And we do that with a lot of our clients, right? Like, let's come up with a concept first that fits into your goals, that fits into your metrics, that fits into your messaging and your branding, and touches, the audience exclusively without, and then we start saying, okay, well, how can that booth look good? How can this experience be just completely badass? And that's what a winning trade show strategy is. That's what a winning event is, for sure. I just want to chime in and just backtracking here. There's what I see are two different maybe stages in your career, and I'd really, really love any feedback here in the chat on this. Is it a lack of support and the willingness from the executives to have these conversations where you're like, you see the writing on the wall as an event marketer, you see the problem, but you're just not sure how to tackle it? And then I think the other side of this is some event marketers, especially new in their career, they don't even know that this is the problem that they have to try to accomplish.
Yep.
That they just accept that they've been told that they have to show up these shows and just, do the thing that looks cool. So I would really love to learn in the chat, at what point are you at? Do you know and you see the problem, and what is that gap for you? Or is it that you're just coming to see the light and you're like, oh my goodness, we got to do things differently, which is a whole different mountain to climb.
Yeah. So I think like as you work through this, right, you think about the history of events, you think about where we're at now, right? I mean, CEO to CMO, moving downward, you're getting to this event person. And I think where it lands me a lot of time, and this is just from my experience, right? This is the experience of working with customers, talking to them on the pod, is you now have this who is doing the strategy and approach, who is crafting this program, who is analyzing the shows, who's making sure that we're getting in front of ICPs, who's making sure that we are deploying capital the right way with the right strategy. And by strategy, I mean, like, it's not just going to the same show you've always gone to, right? It is understanding how to show up at that show. It is understanding size of booth, the type of engagements, the dinners you run, the marketing plan that's attached to it. There's so much that goes into this. So where it leads me is there's often a lot of time, there is this level, there is this VP, this upper management level, right? There is a VP upper management level that is not involved enough, that typically does have a bit of a cost of doing business mentality towards the shows. They are not getting pressured from execs. They are not laying out clear goals, KPIs, incentives, but sometimes they're the people making the decision, making the call, the ones being where these proposals are being brought back to. And now if you add a layer into this, there is multiple stakeholders, different divisions, different departments, people at these levels. So the issues in what's getting lost here is the approach, is the strategy, is the idea that if you are going to deploy 20% of a marketing budget, that needs to be a output to input spend. You need to go make money. You need to return pipeline impact. You need to be around your customers. You need to push company initiatives. So there needs to be thought, strategy, and approach put into this, right? And a lot of times having these conversations that we have had, it's not there. And there's a timeline crunch and it's up. Let's just get a booth designed. We've gone to the show. Let's get it out there. Let's get it rolling. But when you have executive buy-in, when you have buy-in at a VP upper management level, or when, to Harris's point, he said he was an event person working at a Fortune 100 and turned the program around. When you have somebody that either has the knowledge, the time, I would call like the juice at the company, or being allowed to make changes like that, you can get this stuff done and you can do it the right way. So
there's been some really good feedback in here too, I have to say. So Christina said 100% thrown into the fire. It's a 2 steps forward, 3 steps back scenario. Oh man, I feel that. Building foundation is on the back burner when it should be at the front, right? You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to not drown. And so you don't get a chance to say, okay, where are we going? Where
Yeah.
am I swimming? Why am I
Yes.
working so hard on this? So that's a really, really great feedback,
Yeah.
Christina. Nicole says lack of support, no one tracking analytics. That is a
Yep.
key component, right? In my current place, no one tracked anything. I have been tracking in Excel and I can't get buy-in for software. It's seen as non-essential. It's hard to develop strategy when you don't have a complete picture. Oh, girl, Nicole, I
Yeah.
feel you on that one. We could have a whole podcast one day talking
Yeah.
about software and implementation and trying to get the buy-in. That's huge. Christine says oftentimes leadership doesn't provide the goals. It's my job to listen to all the stakeholders and assess to set those goals and share them with my team. And then Harris says key stakeholders should define the target audience, budget, and what the types of metrics. A strategic event manager should determine the rest. I do agree with that, but I think that a strategic event manager should be at the table with those
Yeah.
stakeholders making
Yes.
those decisions, hands down. And I think that there's a component of maybe it's lack of awareness, lack of confidence in how to approach that and how
Yeah.
to show that value. And that goes back into metrics, tracking, the
Yeah.
the vision, the strategy.
So here's
And
just
that's what
listening.
we're trying to do here, right? We're just trying to get people confident enough and aware enough to start having these conversations because this is going to be a game changer for your career and for the company trajectory.
So I think a way to spin this, because all just great comments and people in the chat. So keep it up. Ask a question if you have one or a point you want to drive home, anything. But my whole thought here is like, okay, so if you're deploying 20% of a marketing budget, like this shouldn't happen. There shouldn't, like everybody agrees. You can see from the chat and the way people are saying there is misalignment throughout organizations. It's variable, it's different based on structure, setup, size of company. There's so many different, but there is a misalignment. One of the things I see is, well, sales, marketing, and events are all separate. Events may roll up to marketing but they're different. They are separate. They operate independently. Events is a sales and marketing channel. I cannot say, like, I can't scream it enough. It is a sales and marketing channel. And until we start treating it like it all the time and viewing it that way and executing it that way, there will just continue to be misalignment. So some of the things that I think have to begin to get discussed here is let's talk about some solutions. Let's talk about ways of working around this, right? I think there's a lot of different ways, but one is, and I talk about this on the show all the time, I encourage event marketers in the seat, right? Be the person to ask the questions. Hey, how are we deciding on shows? How are we targeting the audience? How are we making adjustments to get results? What type of pipeline impact are we? What are our goals? What are our KPIs? What does success actually look like? What's going to make VP of sales, VP of marketing, CEO, CMO? What's going to make everybody happy? What do we want out of this? We are deploying 20% of total marketing budget. Sometimes people are up in the 40% range, right? So that is just a smart, intelligent way to drive a conversation. I encourage everybody to do it. It's difficult at times. Some people have imposter syndrome, but you need to let people know, you need to stand on the business of being like, I am trying to operate an event program that drives results for this company, right? So I think that's one. Two, I would encourage event people, look for advocates. Look for somebody, CEO, CMO, VP of something, director. I don't know. These companies are so matrixed, right? They have so many layers of management. You have to find somebody that either has a seat at the table, is incentivized in a similar way, where essentially they are trying to drive results, or you can relay this problem to them and say, how do we pause? How do we reset here? How do we take a look at this program, take a look at this spend, and find a way to make it more efficient, to make it drive better results, and to do things in a strategic manner? And I think there is a lot of work to be done in this space for sure. So this is just something that I'm working through, something I'm thinking about. Again, talking to customers, working with customers, talking with people on the podcast. I'm trying to navigate and learn and understand and think about history and where we are, to say, why is there such a lack of strategy and approach? When we have conversations with our customer and we pull them backwards to talk about that, not all customers, some people, new prospects, it's more common than I'd like. They're confused by it. They're like, well, I don't know. Why does that matter? Or, well, we've never talked about that, or no one's really ever asked us about this. And then my question would simply be then like, okay, well then what are your goals? What are your KPIs? If you're, are you doing it on your own, or are you just not even considering it? And unfortunately, most of the time it is not being considered to a large degree. So I think we have to get to a place to where, the event program has to walk the walk, talk the talk, and walk the walk. And part of that is being more strategic.
Absolutely. So something that we've been working on for what, 6 months now is this framework to be able to measure success. And part of that is really starting with having these conversations. So it's not a fully thought out concept. We have, presented this and talked about it with our Congress, our Event Marketing Congress, which is a private group of global event marketers. But if anybody is interested in seeing what we put together so far, feel free to email me. We'll put my email in the chat if you want the deck. It has really good tactical advice on what to say, when to say it, what types of questions to ask, and even, a strategic planner, a little matrix that you can use to start to plan these events, especially with 2025 coming up. I mean, many are already starting to work into Q2 for their event plans, but happy to provide that advice at least as much as possible. Christina said, from my experience as a supplier and marketer, measurable strategy is missed. We're building out a 2025 differently with analytics in mind, including touch point that leads to sale. I'd love to know what software is out there, if any recommendations. I think it really depends on your internal structure, right? In terms of software, we could talk about software all day long. I love it, but I love hearing what others are using, right? Is it a matter of, do you have an existing CRM that you already have implemented and you're looking to add on to that, or are you really open to completely restructuring your entire lead strategy, right? Do you want a full new CRM that kind of ties in events and your analytics along the line and having dashboards and tracking and all of that? So anybody in here that's currently using some software that they love, we'd love to hear it.
Again, that was a little bit of my rant, but let's talk some AI. And if anybody has any questions on basically, like I said, this is something I'm working through, talking to people, trying to craft out, right? I'm trying to wrap my mind around it so that we on our side know how to work with our customer, support our customer. And really, at the end of the day, we want to solve problems for our customers, not just provide trade show booths and event build out, right? Or consulting. We want to help them solve problems. You are here in your event program and you're trying to get here. What is that delta? What is the thing that you are trying to accomplish? And it should tie to company initiatives, goals, revenue, pipeline. We want to come up with strategies and then execution that builds on that. So I would love feedback, love questions, emails, whatever it may be after this. And thanks for listening, everybody, for sure. Coty, let's go to little AI talk here.
We have so many ways, I think, that AI can be overwhelming. Same with software, right? Any software when you're looking at your current operations. And so AI is a buzzword that I feel like everybody hears, and you're like, okay, you've got to implement it, but how, right? And what really makes sense for the way that your business is? And how do you optimize that? So with the power of AI and events, we all know it's coming. We all need to address it. We all need to figure out ways that we can really implement this in our business. But really the question is how. So what's interesting is Julius Lars, if anybody follows him on LinkedIn, he has some really great insights. And he had posted this LinkedIn post, and we can link it out in the chat as well. But what's interesting is he has this really cool, image here. It's an infographic with all the different types of solutions and tech that you can use. And some of that has to do with AI. But when I look at this, I get so incredibly overwhelmed. I don't know about anybody else out there, but how do we implement these things easily is always a big question. A lot of times we're hesitant as companies to implement new software, especially if it impacts the entire process and everybody else involved, right? Heavy costs to deploy. But when it comes down to it, sometimes simple is a great way. A simple tactic like using ChatGPT is a great way to kind of like dip your toe in the world of AI. So what I did, knowing my world and what we do here at Rockway, I use AI a ton. And so I wanted to break down a couple different ways with prompts that we can actually use it.
Cody, I think one important note on this for everybody is, look, I think there has to be a delineation that softwares in our space will be utilizing AI to improve their software, right? They're going to add in AI technology and elements to improve their software to help you do things. But I also think a more general position that especially event marketers should be taking is, well, event marketers, we said, they are under resourced, they do have little time, they are very busy. How can you use AI to speed up, to become more efficient, to free up more of your time? What are some of the mundane tasks or different things, just simple, tactical, doesn't require implementation, doesn't require a big software overhaul, doesn't require some, most softwares are sell you the world, give you, a town, right? Like it just
Yeah.
doesn't always equate. So I think it's
And if it's too
finding,
complicated, you're not going to use it,
yes, it's finding
right?
small tactical things that you can do to free up time and
Yep.
be efficient.
So into that segue, when it comes to saving time and optimizing how you can use I put together 7 different very easy tactics that you can try on your own using just ChatGPT. There's an app, you can log into it. I think you can even have the mid-level plan for 20 bucks a month, but the free plan's fine. But a key note here, and I do want to mention this, if any of your companies have any sort of like privacy requirements, paying for the $20 ChatGPT is an excellent level because any of your data that's being that you're utilizing within ChatGPT is completely private in that one. So it's not being shared in the AI learning. But moving on, just wanted to show here, I think one of the tactics that not a lot of us think about is how you can actually use ChatGPT for project management. So a use case, a really good example is if you are trying to, you have an event coming up and you have a lot of different things and a lot of different people that are going to be involved in that project. You could put in the prompt, I'm planning a trade show booth for whatever event it is with the following tasks. And you can list out the tasks or you can put, categories of tasks, create a project timeline with key milestones, deadlines, dependencies, ensuring no bottlenecks, include recommendations for tracking progress and staying organized. Pretty simple. You can literally copy and paste this right into ChatGPT with all of the details, and it can start building out a whole entire spreadsheet for you. And of course, there's going to be some customization from event to event or how you typically tend to do things, but it does really help get the ball rolling and it really saves time. Another one that I absolutely love is expense reporting. This actually was an idea from Doug.
Shout
He
out Doug
has,
Foley,
yep,
giant
shout
goat.
out to Doug
Yeah,
Foley.
giant goat.
He did a really great presentation with our Event Marketing Congress over the summer, and this one just really hit home with many is all of those receipts, right? From your meals, from your coffee, from your Ubers, you save them all and you can very easily upload right into ChatGPT and it will build out an entire expense list, which I thought that was brilliant and that just saved me so much time. Another one, when we're talking about metrics, right? How can we use ChatGPT for data analysis or surveys? So if you're doing surveys after an event, collecting all of that, inputting it into ChatGPT and letting it analyze it, it will spit out a beautiful summary that really kind of highlights some bullet points and some action items that you can take from what you've learned from the data. And so that's a very helpful prompt. Another one is scheduling and employee planning. So day of events, if you have a lot of moving parts, you have a lot of different components that are happening within the booth, you can pop this right into ChatGPT and say, help me schedule a booth staff for whatever event. This event runs from the start time to end time. We need X amount of people per shift with scheduled breaks, specific roles, and you create an optimized schedule and boom, they'll have everything kind of there. So this alone, how many times have you had to spend hours and hours mulling over a spreadsheet and trying to balance out this or that? Now, we all know that ChatGPT isn't always perfect. It can make mistakes, but it's a great starting point. And then you go through, you analyze the data that you've got and start to deploy it. Another one is personalized engagement strategies within the booth. A lot of times it really helps just start to trigger some ideas. Sometimes you're overwhelmed, you may be burned out, you're not sure what's going to be different or unique this time compared to previous years. So you can put in the information of past event data, they list interest, sustainability, networking. You can even include a persona for the audience, suggested personalized booth engagement strategies, including targeted giveaways, conversation starters, or activations. You can even include a budget. That's another thing that's really helpful. I love this one. So it might not always give you the final engagement idea that you use, but it absolutely kind of plants a seed of a few different ideas that you can then take and turn into reality, which is pretty cool. And then we've got content creation for booth promotion, right? So if you have some pictures and you have some content that you created, some videos, some scripts that you want to write out, you can put in the information about the event, something cool that happened, maybe some cool conversations or some partners that you worked with. You put in this prompt and it's going to start to write out some LinkedIn posts or Instagram posts. And you can use that for the brand, right? So for your company pages or even just for your personal pages, especially after event, our minds are going a million miles an hour on what went well, what didn't. And if you want to just kind of roughly brain dump that into ChatGPT, it'll formalize it into a really, really nice little post for you. Lastly, we've got lead scoring and follow-up, right? So this is something that comes from Matt, one of our shows that we talked about lead scoring. And when you're having conversations, and the most important thing to, be doing is scoring, whether it's a hot lead, it's a medium hot lead, or it's something that you really don't need to have, high priority on. You can put in all of the details about the interactions, and then they can actually, it can spit out lead scoring and some follow-up information, whether you need a script or something that you want to write up to strategize how you're going to touch on those leads that came in.
Coty, it was a simple one that we used AI for that I think just in people's daily. I think one of the big ones was when we hosted our own event, trying to break people up into groups, into multiple sessions and assigning people. And one of our big things was we wanted to make sure that everybody got to work with everybody and everybody got different looks and groups and sizes. And just asking ChatGPT just spit all that out for us and made it super, super simple. I think that's just
Yep.
another way of saying, from administrative time, you're talking administrative, time consuming work, easy, low hanging fruit. I even saw Christine mentioned using it for idea, theme creation. I mean, we use it ourselves to just get the kind of juices flowing. Show me some visuals for ABC, right? You just start adding it in. It's like having another person in the room essentially that will show you things visually.
Oh, I like that, using campaigns for transparency and additional nurturing campaigns. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. All of that. That's really cool. Kenny had said, it sounds like you use ChatGPT as your default AI platform for all of these great prompts. Do you use any other Claude? And if so, pros and cons for each. We currently do not use much beyond that just at this time, but we have clients that occasionally utilize AI for the booth tracking, right? So you can get certain AI platforms that track like facial recognition to prove, satisfaction or engagement within the booth, even booth traffic, and to analyze that data. I mean, you can go big in terms of AI technology, but we just currently have not. Something that we do love, and I would love to hear if anybody has ever used this, but Claude, PLAUD.ai, is actually an AI recording device. And I always thought that would be the coolest thing to have on the salespeople on the event floor to start recording, taking a transcript of that and being able to take those transcripts of conversations and turn that into notes for your CRM, for example. Things like that, I think would be really cool to deploy. But yeah, I mean, Kenny, there's so many out there. It really depends on your needs and what you're hoping to accomplish. But sometimes simple is better.
Going back to misalignment and kind of what we broke down earlier, Harris had a comment here that said for event metrics, ask what metrics they use for other marketing programs. Using the same metrics gives them apples to apples. So, Harris, this is something that I think about all the time where I'm like, okay, like what sales and marketing channel or output in a business doesn't have metrics or things that they're measuring that they've been measuring that when a strategy gets deployed or you're like, hey, we're going to change up the way we do X, that these things don't end up happening, right? So I think it's just such an obvious of a breakdown. Why is that not being created? Why does that not happen everywhere inside of events? Because it is a very common thing. So I think you giving the advice of saying, hey, ask about that, tie it back to another metric. I love that. And I think it's really good advice for someone that's in the event marketer seat that is looking to take things either up the ladder or to stakeholders to have a discussion. Christine said, oftentimes leadership doesn't provide the goals. It's my job to listen to all the stakeholders and assess and set these goals and share them with the team so we're all on the same page strategically. Christine, I agree. I think you've built your career and the level that you are at. And just because I know you personally and I've had discussions with you, I think there are a lot of complications in that scenario. The first thing would be how many stakeholders. You may be able to juggle 10 or 6 and talk to them all and curate and stand your ground and say, hey, we need to make decisions. But a lot of times what I'm hearing from event marketers is they're being pushed and pulled by 6 different stakeholders. They all want different things. They all don't communicate. So now take a young event marketer, which typically a lot of people thrown in the seat are younger. How do they handle that? So the fact that there are too many stakeholders involved from different departments and different divisions is a problem in the event space. And the more I think about it, it's more of a solution to where it should just be input, where it's like they don't get a say. You have to narrow down who gets a say, because your comment specifically, I'm like, yeah, like I could 100% see Christine dealing with, I don't know, 3 to 6 stakeholders, getting alignment, holding her own, having the discussion and saying, hey, team, like this is the direction we're going. This is what we're doing. I've listened to everybody. I think that doesn't happen all the time. I think that can tend to be complicated due to a couple things, but I love the comment. Nicole, great comment. She says lack of support, dot, dot, dot. No one tracking analytics. In my current place, no one tracking anything. I have been tracking in Excel and can't get buy-in for software. Right there. I can't get buy-in for software, right? It's seen as non-essential. It's hard to develop a strategy when you don't have a complete picture. So Nicole, what I would ask, if it was just you and I and we were doing a consulting and we were talking, when you say it's seen as non-essential, who said that it's non-essential? Who is saying that? Who is saying no to this, right? Who are they? What is the seat that they have at the table? Because I think the then question goes, is this a sales and marketing channel to us or not? And it is a question that needs to go to the right people. Because when you phrase it that way, are we operating our event program as a cost of doing business or as a sales and marketing channel? Which one is it? Because if it is a sales and marketing channel and your expectation is that we drive pipeline, that we develop referrals, that we create new partnerships, that we create new streams of revenue, that we accelerate deals, that we increase average customer spend. I could go on and on and on. When you start throwing things like that at people, they're like, oh, no, yeah, no, we do want those things. Well, shit. Then you're talking to me about a sales and marketing channel. You're not talking about a cost of doing business. I can tell you as a business owner, I can tell you what a cost of doing business is, right? Like our healthcare that we have to shop every single year. By the way, healthcare stays the same, cost goes up, right? Cost of doing business. This is not. So Nicole, my thought on this is the way that you frame it. Can you get another stakeholder involved? Can you get numerous in the room? Can you find someone that can be an advocate? Can you reframe the way you're asking the question to show them that this, if you are expecting sales and marketing channel results, then we need to change up the way we're doing stuff. I think there was one more. Sorry. A lot of this was really, really good. Oh man, I think there was one
While
more.
you're looking,
Sorry.
I just have to
Sorry,
say,
yeah.
Nancy went ahead and shared this really awesome article from Exhibit City News, Will AI Save the Event Industry? And it gives, a nice little description of some ways that it could and couldn't. So thank you for sharing that, Nancy.
So I love Christine. Sorry, I went down the bottom here. Christine said, I worked with management to set up groups of stakeholders for different meetings needed during the planning phase and got buy-in from everyone, but it took a couple of years for us to get those teams right. So man, a couple of years to get that right. Could you imagine, Christine, if sales said that to the CEO about sales? Hey, it's going to take us a couple of years to get this right. I got to get everybody in a room. As a CEO, I would flip. I would say, we don't have time. We don't have years to get this right. How can we not have a discussion about capital that we are deploying, that we are expecting a return. So that to me, Christine, you fighting for that and pulling people in a room and having that to me is like, you shouldn't have to do that. But if that's your recourse, if that's you, just imagine again what a younger person is thinking like, oh shit, who do I even go to here? I got the VP of sales tells me one thing, this another. So I think to me, it just further shows where there are problems. And it's like, how do we open these doors, get it more connected? How do we get people seeing essentially that there's just got to be a better way to run these programs and put event marketers in a better seat, empower them further, or at least give them some help from some director level VPs or people that can say, hey, like you and I are going to work on this strategy together. We're going to get the stakeholders information. I'm going to give you the green light. And then you're going to rock and roll because you're the one that knows how. If I tell you these are the goals, I know you can go build an event or an event program that works.
I think it goes back to also figuring out like those stakeholders, their language, right? And that can be the hardest
Yeah.
part to learn. Many, want to be able to tell you what they want and you just kind of execute. And so figuring out a way that, what makes them tick, what
Yeah.
matters to them personally, not necessarily just for the business, but for them personally, and being able to talk through that. Sometimes it's ego driven, right? Sometimes the executives are making a decision as to why they want to be at a show because their buddies are at the show or their competitors at the show, or maybe it's just because they've always done it, and they make a decision on what booth they choose just because it looks cool versus the functionality behind it. And they don't see all of the components that make up the rest of the full entire strategy, like we've said before. But Nicole, like figuring out the language that those stakeholders are, and just like Matt said, figuring out like who is it that's making these decisions and why are they saying no? Why doesn't this matter to them is really, really important.
Yeah. I mean, I have been on calls with clients. Again, aha moments. I've been on calls with clients where I'm talking to the event marketer or the event manager, whatever you want to call them, that is going to be executing and is going to be our day-to-day person. And then I have had it where they bring on I don't know, VP of sales, VP of marketing. Hey, this is my boss, but they're on one call and they're gone. Right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not truly involved. And then information's being run back to them. And I know that their time may be important and they're not going to be involved in this, but I've been on calls where we ask questions and we start asking we have one business this way, where when we have that person on a call, we start asking questions that they're like, oh shit, like, no, we're not thinking of this at all. Because oftentimes it is not the event marketer's call. It is not their decision, right? It is this person, whomever it is. It could be a million different people, an organization. And when you get them on the call and you ask the question the right way, is this being thought of? I mean, Coty, this just happened with Insight, 100%. And now look at the booth that they just deployed and the results that they're having right away and the feedback from the CMO on the show floor. It is because that first phone call, we had those upper level strategic management people that can make calls. They can tell stakeholders, hey, I understand this is your opinion, but this doesn't matter in this case. Someone has to make calls. We can't just listen to everybody and feed everybody what they want. Someone has to create clarity, right? And we had the people and we start asking questions. They are like, more of that. Yes. Like
Yep.
more
And
of
this has
that.
been years in the
We're
making,
talking,
obviously.
yeah, we're talking about audience, customer engagement, who's the ICP, who's the person you were like, they were like, yes, this is what we need to be talking about. And it won the business, but you don't always
Yeah.
have that. It's difficult to get.
Yeah. Or it's someone like Nicole, who she just posted yes to this, competitors, and we've always been there, right? So those are the two core decision-making reasons as to why they show up to an event. We've never gotten additional business from that. That is so common. So Nicole, you're not alone. We've all probably been there at some point in our career. And I think it's a matter of empowering you to ask the right questions, to get the right
Yeah.
stakeholders in the room, and to start carving away slowly at that potential strategy that you can build for them.
Harris asked the question here. He said, how are your stakeholders measured? And I think it's a question that Harris is saying like, if you know how they're measured, then you know what they'll be seeking and what, right? So, and I think this goes back to when it comes to an event program, is this idea of somebody has to be able to make the calls. Somebody has to be able to say, this, not everything matters, right? Like just not everything matters. And somebody has to be able to set the course. And I guess when you get down to, you find too often the course is not being set and the program is running. And then you have the people running the program doing everything in their power to do it right, to get things right, to create engagement. But if you reverse it back out, the course has really not been set from the beginning. And when that course is not set from the beginning, it gets tough to get where you want to go. And then you just got a lot of people working really, really hard, trying to do the best they can. But that is what misalignment does to an organization.
So much good stuff there.
Yeah, it's good. Good feedback in the chat.
So this is a continuous topic, right? There's no magic solution or magic answer to any of this. And I think it really comes down to who you're working with, the organization, the team that you have to support you, but also like, how do we approach this? We're still figuring this out as as us, individuals here at Rockway. And so I'm really looking forward to 2025 because I know that we're going to start to put it together, some sort of resource that's actually actionable. And like I said, if you guys ever want the decks, happy to share what we have so far. Even the AI stuff that we talked about today, I have all of that summarized in the deck. Happy to share that. But whatever we can do to empower you to start asking these questions and being at the table, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that we're trying to decode from this, Coty, A, is for ourselves, for working with our customers, but in two, I want to be able to help people. I feel like in this industry, there is a lack of problem solving. There is a lot of doing and a lot of executing. And it's like, oh, the booth looks nice. Oh, the event looks nice. How did it perform? What are we doing here? What is actually happening from all of this? And the more people I talk to, event people are thinking this way. They want to know. They want to create the results. They want to create the impact. But I think when you think about it and you talk to people, there are layers to this. The buck stops somewhere with this problem to get it solved. And a lot of organizations are different. So I think the more that we can just keep talking about this, the more feedback that we can get. We're trying to put a playbook together for all of this. And Harris said, follow the money. Harris, I couldn't agree with you more, right? Like I just couldn't agree with you more. It is follow. We have times where the CEO is signing the check and signing the whatever it may be, but they will not be involved in the process, right? So it's very difficult to navigate that. Other times you have people that are just solely responsible for the budget. They can deploy it as they see fit, right? There's a lot of scenarios that go in there. But yes, follow the money. And what we want to be able to do is help uncover ways of doing things better, exhibit better, run your events better, drive better results, find ways of navigating your stakeholders so we can give people the advice, the frameworks, the information that they can be the one to bring to their company and say, hey, we're here. We need to get here. This is how we do it. And if you get a couple stakeholders, to buy into that, I think you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. And we have a lot of regulars here, and I appreciate everyone coming out
it's good seeing everybody today.
The hour with us.
Yeah.
I do want to say for our next upcoming shows, we have one on the 22nd of December or the 8th of December. I have to double check. We have one coming up in December, but come with your problems.
End of the year wrap show with
the
me.
18th. Yeah,
end
that's
of the year. Yeah, we have an end of the year wrap up show.
Thanks, Ish. The 18th.
Pablo and myself. I might be in a Santa suit. We don't know yet. Right? We're working on it. But I think it'll be a great show.
But we love hearing feedback. So Nicole, I think that you did a great job just sharing, what your current struggles are, and we can talk through them, give advice. We love being able to do that with you guys on a regular basis. So we look forward to next time and hearing more.
Yeah, great seeing everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here with us. Awesome.